One of the most obvious cases of a scam or of somebody who's guilty of a crime, or having done something at the very least, would have been an example I saw the other day. So this guy writes, because I'm pretty sure it's a guy. You can mostly assume when somebody has done something wrong and they're trying to get away with it, usually it's a guy. And based on the rather masculine style, the choice of words, the grammatical errors, the poor linguistical way of the presentation or of the of the post, all 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 signs pointed to this being a man. So I'm gonna assume it's a bloke. It's a dude. So this dude, anonymous, posted in some self-help group on social media something along the lines of the following, or something along the lines of this. Hey everyone, please help me. I'm being called in for questioning and interviewing by the police. Can somebody explain me the consequences of choosing not to explain yourself, any sort of punishment you might get, and how does this whole thing work? Now, there's a lot of people out there with 12-volt brains. A lot of dumb people. Really dumb people. Essentially, if you're not guilty of a crime or of a suspected crime, and you're getting called into some sort of interview or questioning by the police, then you have nothing to fear because you're innocent. I wouldn't have feared being called into questioning or brought into questioning by the police because I haven't done anything wrong. I'm innocent. So I got nothing to fear. So that means I don't have the need to ask in confidentiality whether somebody can explain to me or not the consequences of choosing not to explain yourself when you're being questioned by the police. However, if I were guilty of a crime or of a suspected crime, and I was being brought into questioning by the police, then I would be very, very nervous, and I would indeed ask around for helps and tips and tricks on how to avoid jail time. Well, the obvious thing, or the simplest thing. I don't know why I'm babbling. The obvious thing is the simplest one, and it's the only right one. It is to tell the truth. If you did a crime, then you have to serve the punishment. You have to accept the punishment. If you lie to the police, then obviously things are only going to get worse, and you might get additional punishment. Now, anyway, with respect to persuasion, this is highly, highly interesting because how am I going to persuade somebody as a police officer if I'm interviewing a suspect? Let's say there's been a murder and I'm interviewing a murder suspect. How am I going to persuade this person into telling me the truth about what happened and admitting to having done the deed? Well, there are several ways. I can use manipulation. I can use minimizing. I can use comparisons. I can socialize. I can put it into context and say stuff like, if I were guilty of a crime, I'd try to, lie as well. But, listen, there's an obvious downside of doing this because you're only going to get, you're going to get found out. People are going to find out about you lying. And when they do, we're going to have to serve more time. I'm going to create a vision in his mind, or I'm going to create a vision in the suspect's mind. And that's really what I'm getting at here. Because anybody, and that's number one. But number two is, if I'm actually the suspect here, if I'm actually the guilty one, and I'm trying to make other people help me by by teaching me how to avoid jail time by lying to the police, then I need to use persuasion as well. Only it's the wrong sort of persuasion, the dark side of persuasion, rather. To summarize, really, all I mean to say is, even in murder suspect cases, or in cases where you're being brought in brought in for questioning by the police, persuasion plays a role, both from the police side because they want to try to make the suspect admit to the crime, and obviously, or admit that he or she did a crime of which they're suspected for, but also on the question, on the, what's the word I'm looking for? On the suspect side, you want to persuade the police to believe into how you haven't done anything, which means, obviously, if you're innocent, you tell the truth. If you're guilty, you persuade them into minimizing the punishment because you make it seem like, and I'm sure that a lot of people are doing this, that you had no choice. Oh, just following orders, whatever. Point being, these are highly interesting persuasion cases, and I recommend that you check them out. If you want to learn, or I recommend that you do some more studies. If you want to learn more about sales, persuasion, business, get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching and listening to this, and I'll see you there.